is Monday, February 12th, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a very productive getting our ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Monday, and I most certainly did get my ass kicked just a little bit less than normal today. We did a little bit of half guard stuff, and I feel that covering half guard is very, very important. I mean, I haven't done it enough, and I need to do it more, and because I always end up in half guard for some stupid reason. It just happens. Anyway, with regard to what we're going to be talking about today on the show, most likely just jiu-jitsu. I spent a little bit of time dinking around online today, but not a whole lot. I mean, most of the time that I did spend online, I ended up talking to these monkeys with regard to, what do you call it? Segregated witness and stuff. These fucking people, they don't get it. They don't get it. They don't get that some of us have been talking about this shit for the last close to 3 years now, and have been studying it and reviewing it and are really fucking bored of doing so, you know? And it's like, you tell them, oh, I don't want to use SegWit. They're, hey, why don't you want to use SegWit? And I was like, dude, really? Go back and look at all the fucking books I've written about why I think it's a stupid fucking idea. Look my fucking name up on Google. You'll find plenty of it. I mean, really. And it just gets boring after a while, debating the same stupid shit with probably the same stupid fucking people saying the same stupid shit, thinking that you're going to change your mind and you're going to become stupid like them or something, or at least stop talking. You know, I think that's more likely the answer there, is that they would rather you just shut up about it. You know, don't bother to warn anybody. Don't bother to tell anybody. This is actually probably a really stupid idea for us, and will definitely lead to this getting taken over by banks and you being told to fuck yourself. Okay? That's how it seems to me. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, although I did want to spend just a teeny tiny more time talking about jiu-jitsu today. I mean, I know it's not really our subject matter and whatnot, but, you know, I've been trying to be a little more patient in my jiu-jitsu and waiting for the opportunities to come to me. And today, I really didn't accomplish that at all. I mean, I did to the extent that I was able to switch a backward move into actually mount it on my opponent, which I knew I could do. I thought it was going to be tough, though, because the guy was blue belt. And it was tough. He's actually quite skillful. But we did a little bit of pass keep from the half guard, and he was not able to mount me. He did get me in a dominant position from half guard, from having me in his half guard to me having him in my half guard. I don't know that it might have been the other way around. Either way, he didn't mount me, but I did mount him once, and so, you know, that felt really good that I was able to inhibit him from mounting me, despite the fact he actually outranks me. But I was able to mount him once. I know, I probably caught him sleeping just that one time. Just that one time, because he is quite skillful. Like I said, this is definitely not to take anything from him. But, yeah, caught him unawares. Got that mount. Anyway, like I said, let's go ahead and throw down into our first dance. And what the hell? A little bit of prong right off the bat. Divide and conquer here on Coin Metal. And that was Rio Grande Blood by Ministry. So, while reviewing the tabs that I actually have open here on my browser, I determined that we should definitely cover this article. And we've talked a lot about the CFTC and the SEC and their attempts to, and the IRS, and their attempts to cage cryptocurrencies within the same regulatory boundaries that they hold current securities and currencies in. And we're finding out that not only do they not do a very good job with the current regulatory frameworks that they have, meaning that the legacy participants regularly abuse the SEC's statutes and whatnot, and most of the time it's so bad that the likes of Goldman Sachs, and I'm also going to enunciate another side of this, and this will actually be to Goldman Sachs' credit. I talk a lot of shit about them, and I do feel like they have gotten kind of a bad rap. It doesn't help when they got somebody like Jamie Dimon as their front man, and the kind of stuff that comes out of his mouth. It just makes me think they're just way more intelligent than most of us give them credit for. But they're always doing things that run them in arrears. Fucks them up. And I got to on the capitalist side of me, I want to say, hey man, you're trying to save money. On the libertarian and anarchist side of me, I want to say, good, fuck the man, right? But the problem is that a lot of times the frauds that they're caught in are things where they've been abusing their customers, and that's the parts that get me. Okay, I think that government is just too invasive these days and needs to be pared back significantly. They need to be remembering that their role is to serve us, not for us to be their fucking peons. Of course, it doesn't help that the memetics fed to us through our media would give us the impression that we are in fact subjects. And the only time that you really do see contrary evidence is when a case that somebody like yourself or myself makes it far enough to where it bears some note. That they want to stick some cameras and microphones on it. But at the same time, I feel like a lot of the media that we're felt, it puts a very disempowering light on the relationship that we have with our government. And one of the reminders of this for me was I went down to a boating show recently, and I'm a fishaholic, so got to do what I got to do. Anyway, so I'm there and I'm talking to the Army Corps of Engineers, and those of you who have listened to the show know that I have certain issues with the design of our dams, right? And so I'm like, all right, dude, who do I talk to about fixing some situations that I feel need to be resolved? And he's like, talk to your congressperson. He goes, I know it doesn't sound like much, but they actually do read your information that you send them, and they try that your congressman tries to respond to you, and represent you. And I'm like, okay, that's worth pursuing. And I think that's probably easier now than it's ever been. And I think that not enough people take advantage of that. I mean, and I get that impression from the times that I have reached out to the people that, I like their music, I like their software, I like their hardware, whatever, some reason, I reach out to somebody and say, hey, I really like this, I thought this was cool. And the times that they get back to me, it's always very, very brief, especially if they're somebody relatively important. A good example of this was Mr. John McAfee. Honestly, I really didn't anticipate getting any kind of reaction out of him at all. But he did respond to me. And I said, wow, Mr. John McAfee, fucking software master, fucking internet security guru, whatever, responded to me. So, and from there we actually got him on the show. But the point being that there is a lot lower barrier to contact with our, how should I say, not our superiors, our representatives and our government officials than we are led to believe. And I think that's one of the things where we do kind of drop the ball. I think too many of us get caught up in what we see on television and the disempowering situations that we see people being portrayed in, and we take that as the only truth that there is. Human beings are very, very suggestible, number one, and it's because we receive about 70 to 80% of our how should I say this, cognitive information, the vast majority of us anyway, visually. We get it through visual stimulation, and auditory is a good complement, and also it makes up a good portion of that other 30%. But that's just how we're geared as an animal, and the people that make commercials and make shows and all that, they know this. It's one of the reasons why I keep telling you people on this show, get involved in Bitcoin. Don't just fucking sit on the sidelines and be a user and a trader. Fuck that. God, sign up. Get a goddamn GitHub account. Sign up to a fucking mining pool. Throw the biggest piece of shit computer you've got on your fucking network as a miner and mine some coin with it. If for no other reason than to get the experience of what it really means to participate in this space. Because that participation is completely open to you. There is no licensure required. There is no registration required. There is no PhD required. There's nothing that anybody can give you that is required other than your own curiosity and motivation to do so. That is all that's required now. And an internet connection, of course. But, point being, if you don't have an internet connection, you're probably not even listening to this. So, there you go. But the point being that this level of engagement hasn't been really available to most people in a lot of different industries. Like, I'll give you a good example, cannabis. Most of us, we're just happy to smoke it. Not me. No, I like to dig. And so, here I am. I'm like getting ready to start a test operation, and it's all legal. It's all legal. I'm not even over limits. And that's like one of the first things that somebody who's growing their own shit does, is they go completely over the legal limits. I'm well within the bounds, so got nothing to worry about. Point being that's what I like to do. I want to be part of the process. I want to understand what makes the difference between good pot and bad pot. I want to know all the little nooks and crannies and all the little things that could be done better to produce better pot. But that's the kind of person that I am. And I think that's the way that we should be about anything that we're really into. I mean, if you're really into something, like, say you're into snowboarding, why would you just be happy with grabbing a snowboard off the shelf at Kmart, strapping it on, or Walmart rather, strapping it on and zooming down the hill? After a while, if you're really getting into being a snowboarder, and you're getting into snowboarding, you find out really quick that the one that you pull off the shelf isn't necessarily going to fit you as a snowboarder. Like the first time you get that feeling is like you pick up somebody else's snowboard, somebody else who maybe they designed their own, or they built their own, or they hired somebody to make one for them that was custom built to them. And then you feel the difference, and you understand that whatever objections you did have to snowboarding were primarily in the fact that you were using a piece of shit board and it was cutting back on your experience. And you understand that there is an experience differential between quality gear and Walmart gear. And once you get that in your mind, you start to think what changes could be made that would make it specifically good for me, or would specifically enhance the way that I do this. And I think that too many of us get stuck on the idea that somebody else's ideas of what's good is good enough, and that we don't have a place in those markets for ourselves. And a lot of that has to do with the regulatory morass that's been built up, due to lawsuits and whatnot, that have made it tougher and tougher and tougher for people to get into just doing things. That's one of the things that's made cryptocurrency so very exciting, is we haven't had to ask permission from anybody to do what we're doing. And personally, I believe that should always be the case. That we should never have to ask a federal entity, a state entity, a city entity, an entity, anybody to write, launch, have a network, transact in any fucking currency that we either create, assist in creating, watch being created, and that we should be able to mine any of them and create markets with them without any requirement for any kind of licensure. I mean, I think that it's one of those things that we really need to watch it happen. We need to see it in its depth, especially to understand who the bad players really are and why what they're doing is bad. If it is actually hurting somebody. It's like this Facebook channel that I moderate for Verge Currency. We get scammers in here like all the fucking time, and people report posts and stuff. And if you're in the Verge Currency room, I want you to know that I've decided to take a different attitude with regard to scammers on Verge Currency. I'm not going to block them anymore, and I'm not going to delete their shit. No. And I'm going to tell you why. It is with intent. I want you to see these fuckers. I want you to study the claims that they're making. I want you to see the hooks that they use to con people into buying into their shit. Now, I'm not condoning what they do, and I comment all over their fucking posts saying, hey, fuck you, asshole, and all that. And I repost their shit saying, hey, this is a fucking asshole that's trying to scam you out of fucking money. But I'm not going to delete them. Because, see, supposedly Facebook is doing this thing where they're filtering out all quote-unquote cryptocurrency ads. I'm looking at this butt fucker right here, Houston Kings Luther on Facebook. If you are on Facebook, this guy's a fucking scammer, and he's trying to scam people with his binary options bullshit. So tell him to fuck off whenever you get the opportunity. Anyway, so I'm looking at it right here. He managed to get through their filters. If Facebook has any bullshit filters going, he's posting all over this, and he's getting through their fucking filters. And you know what? Too fucking bad. I'm not on Facebook to fucking censor other people. But if I see bad activity, I'm going to point it out. I'm more for the tar and feathering approach. Because censorship doesn't do shit. All it does is encourage little buttfuckers like Houston Kings Luther here to get creative in how they post their ads. It's like this. Here, check this out. He says, Binary options trading. Are you interested in trading? Blah, 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 blah. He snuck right through all their fucking filters. So does having the fucking filter do anything to stop this asshole? No. It doesn't do a fucking thing. Does me deleting him do a fucking thing to stop him from doing what he's doing? No. He's going to come back with a different fucking name. If I block him, he'll come back with a different name. I'll let him back into the fucking channel, and he'll start posting his fucking bullshit again. So rather than rather than deal with all that bullshit, I just repost his shit, and I say, this is a butt fucker trying to fuck you in the butt. Watch out for your own bunghole. Don't give him any of your fucking money. Because I feel that's far more useful. That I, as a moderator, have noted this person is a butt fucker than me trying to hide him away from you and you walking around thinking that there's no butt fuckers out there. See, the less of that shit you actually see, the less you're going to look out for it. Oh, what's this? Oh, binary options trading. Oh, yeah, I'll throw money at that. So yeah, tar and feather. Please, if you're in the Verge Currency group, I want you to tar and feather this motherfucker. Let him know, this activity isn't welcome here. We're not going to fucking delete you. We're going to let you hang yourself. Every fucking time you post this, Facebook keeps note of that shit. I mean, they've got your entire fucking record. Everything you've ever posted, everything that you wrote and never posted, they've got a fucking copy of it somewhere. And they pour through that shit looking for little algorithm. They run it against behavior algorithms, and they use it to determine who is doing what. I mean, how do you think they caught that one guy, fucking Gerbez? Yeah. They caught him spamming all over the fucking place. Of course, I'm sure there were plenty of complaints too. But, yeah, in any case, I mean, I might report this guy to Facebook and say, hey, look, this guy's getting through your fucking filters. You suck. But the only reason I don't do that, and I'll be honest here, is that I think that censorship is a terrible, terrible habit to get into. Because before you know it, you're censoring people for everything. You're censoring political speech. You're censoring environmental speech. You're censoring medicine information. You're censoring everything. And pretty much anything of meaning is lost. And we're not sharing that information. And we're not able to educate our decisions, our own decisions, on how we feel about these things, especially if we're not seeing anybody else talking about them. So, no, I am not going to delete, I am not going to block, no. Go ahead, post your fucking shit. It's just another rap on the noose as far as I'm concerned, and when they do decide that they want to pull on the other end, you did it yourself, bud. Nobody told you to do it. Nobody instructed you on my end to do it. Nobody encouraged you to do it. We probably told you a million times not to do it, and you did it anyway. So you get to wear it. Too fucking bad. Anyway, I want to go ahead and throw down into some music. And you know what? We haven't actually gotten to the fucking article that I've been wanting to get into, and it's sitting right here in front of me. You know what? We're going to do the article first. And then we will do the music break. Making you wait for it just a teeny tiny longer. Anyway, here it is. I got one on Bitcoin.com. KYC requirements are making ICOs riskier, not safer. And let's go ahead and reload this thing because... there we go. It was written 7 hours ago by Kai Sedgwick. Very unfortunate last name to be having in this day and age. But... not for any reason that is bad for you, or I don't know. Anyway, segregated witness. Once upon a time, initial coin offerings were open to everyone. That time was last year, and since then, gaining entry to ICOs has been increasingly difficult. In response to regulatory attention from the SEC, crypto startups have begun to perform due diligence on aspiring investors. Thanks to onerous KYC requirements, the pendulum has swung the other way, presenting hackers with an additional prize: the data of tens of thousands of investors. Also read, many token crowd sales no longer that open to crowds, or to the crowds. Gonna have to right click that one. KYC requirements are an accident waiting to happen. No, they're not an accident waiting to happen. They're a tragedy waiting to be repeated. Did anybody fucking forget about Edgar? I mean, SEC just got hacked. Millions of fucking files in their Edgar system had been compromised. And they had evidence that people were using that information to their advantage on trading. So people got scammed. People lost money because somebody hacked into the fucking Edgar system. Continuing on. KYC requirements are an accident waiting to happen. Last year, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission went after a number of ICOs for failing to perform due diligence to ensure their investors didn't hail from the U.S. Spurred partially by the desire to avoid censure or shutdown from the SEC, ICOs have taken things to the opposite extreme, using Know Your Customer procedures to weed out investors from the U.S., China, and a handful of other countries. To date, all of 2018's major crowd sales have required some sort of KYC in order to gain admittance to their whitelist, and many outsourcing the task to third parties that specialize in such matters. To merely be considered for a token sale, it is now commonplace for an individual to have to submit a passport scan, bank statement, and various other documents, and to answer a string of questions about their background and the origin of their cryptocurrency. Legolas, for example, requested that investors, quote, provide as much detail as possible about the origin of the Bitcoin. Being whitelisted for a token sale is no guarantee of participation either. Oversubscribed ICOs, such as ArcBlock, returned Ether to hundreds of participants who had failed to contribute in time or who were deemed to have, quote, cheated by using over the prescribed gas limit. Twitter traders now encourage investors to submit KYC to as many promising ICOs as possible, just in case they later decide to participate. A data leak in the making. With ICOs now holding the passports and other identification documents of thousands of crypto investors, together with their emails and wallet addresses, hackers have added incentive to target crowd sales. Even if they're unsuccessful in altering the contribution address, the raw data of tens of thousands of crypto holders is a honeypot of significant value in its own right. Some of that honeypot was stolen from the B token, whose email database was accessed and used to send out phishing emails which raised over $1 million. This week, Sentinel ICO had an even bigger fail after the passport data of its users was leaked. In a Medium post, the startup confessed to a website vulnerability that a website vulnerability had allowed uploaded files to be accessed by another user. To compound the problem, the user who discovered the flaw then claimed to have been reported to the police by Sentinel for their actions despite having done nothing wrong. Wow. KYC, good for ICOs, bad for investors. It is hard to put a figure on the success rate for ICO whitelist applicants, although it's likely to stand at less than 50%. At least half of the time, in other words, participants are submitting personally identifiable documents in exchange for nothing, be it due to whitelist oversubscription or network congestion that prevents them from contributing Ether in time. The likelihood of that data being leaked is low, but cumulatively, over the course of dozens of KYC applications, those odds start to mount up. It only takes one failure to expose an individual's data once and for all time. Email and wallet addresses can be changed. Passports and driving licenses are permanent. Gaining approval to participate in pre- and public sales is now viewed by many ardent ICO participants as a game. The price for admission is the time it takes to complete the KYC registration process and the chance that none of the countless ICOs they will apply to will suffer a catastrophic data breach. As if investing in ICOs wasn't risky enough, KYC requirements have ironically made crowd sales even more hazardous. Do you think KYC requirements for ICOs are excessive or necessary? Let us know in the comments section below. And let us review the comments really quick. Here we go. Totally unnecessary, and this is written by Fancia, or Fancia? I don't know how to pronounce that. Anyway, continuing. Totally unnecessary. If a criminal bought ICO, they are actually contributing to society by funding the projects that may benefit the society. So they are actually doing good for a change. If they made profit investing in ICO, there is no difference than buying and selling tokens. The only place that criminals can exchange crypto for fiat is the crypto exchange fiat gateways like Coinbase. Law enforcement should be watching the exchange, not make ICOs difficult and unsafe. Therefore, it is totally unnecessary for SEC to have this KYC requirement. They should just exempt ICO from the security law. However, SEC cannot ask the ICO host to register the ICO with the SEC. The ICO host is the one that needs a background check to make sure the company is not a scam, not the investors. The SEC got it all wrong. And you know what, dude? Or ma'am, as the case may be, no picture, so we don't know. I agree. I think that is definitely a solid point there. And more importantly, I think that there's another point here that is just not being made. People's information is worth money. If the ICO has nothing else, now they have a significant database of cryptocurrency users that can be sold. They probably have more intimate information than the SEC has concerning the holders of innumerable coins. So, who's the greater danger here? The ICOs or the SEC? And honestly, the SEC is making the ICOs a greater danger by making these kind of requirements. I've looked over the regulation that they intend to impose on cryptocurrencies, and specifically stuff like SB 1241. In Washington, they passed some shit too, and I got to tell you, man, it's like if you wanted to create a situation that could be abused by people with nepotistic interests and stuff like that, that you are looking to create it, because the administrators over these things, they're given so much so much power that they could be selectively keeping people out that are perfectly fit to participate in cryptocurrency businesses within their border. Meanwhile, only letting in their next door neighbor, their neighbor's kid, their kid, all of the glad handing that we've been trying to get rid of. They've got carte blanche to maintain and continue that into the fucking future with the kind of regulatory burden that they're trying to put on all of us. And it's all about just maintaining fucking winners and losers. It's not about protecting the investor. It's not about maintaining the integrity of the market. Because, like I said, I was reviewing it. They can make up any fucking excuse they want and just say, "Oh no, your ICO doesn't work. It's not compliant with us, and you can go fuck off. Your exchange isn't within our boundaries, or it doesn't fit our profile of acceptable fitness, and you got to go fuck off and go somewhere else. And you can't do business with people within the state of Washington either because we told you to fuck off." I mean, really, is that what we were trying to create with Bitcoin? Is some sort of exclusionary zones? I don't think so. I think what's going to end up happening is what's happening in New York. That the businesses they're going to look at the possibility they're going to have that hammer thrown at them. They're just like, fuck New York. It's a tiny little speck on this big ass mud ball. And we don't have to do business with them. Fuck them. They want to do business with us. They're going to have to do shit like get a nonprofit in Nevada and do business through that as a front organization. Because otherwise, they can go fuck themselves. They just erase themselves off the planet's map. And that's really all you're doing with regulations is whatever jurisdiction you're planning to apply your regulatory morass to, you might as well just take an eraser and go to a map and just erase that section off the planet. Because that's the only area that's going to be impacted. Everyone else is going to be doing whatever they were doing yesterday. And they were planning on doing it tomorrow anyway. And the real hard fact is, if anybody within that area that you erased decided, you know what, there's no possible way that they can actually enforce this bullshit over me the way that I'm doing shit, I'm so fucking smart, fuck these people. There'll be a little pinprick of black in the middle of that area that you erased off of the map that everybody else in the planet can deal with. Except for you. You can't deal with them because they've gone through special pains to ensure that you don't even know that they're dealing with everybody else. And that's possible. That's terribly possible. Fuck, there's apps on the fucking Google App Store that allow that. So, if you think you're going to erase us out of the fucking global market by putting some fucking ink on some paper, I'm sorry, you're not going to do it. All you're going to do is make this fucking space less safe for everybody. Less safe for investors and less safe for the global economy at large. Because you're just going to force us to be giving up a lot of fucking information that we really shouldn't have to just to participate in these projects. And I'll tell you another thing. This KYC bullshit, I wouldn't bother to endure it. If there's some fucking wonderbutt ICO out there with all this ICO, all this KYC AML bullshit on it, I'm not going to participate in that shit. Why? I could probably find a currency tomorrow that is starting up in somebody's basement, just like Bitcoin did. It's just a bunch of kids, 14 to 25 years old, got a vision to create a cryptocurrency that can't be silenced, can't be censored, doesn't require third parties, has all the great lessons of all the great cryptocurrencies out there. They're cobbling it right now. They're writing it right now. And by the time they're ready to launch, the SEC or CFTC will have made some big decision about how they're going to be trying to regulate us. And this coin that the SEC and the CFTC and nobody else in the fucking world even knows exists yet is going to launch. And it's going to launch in a way that nobody else but the people that they bothered to invite to it will even know about it. And before you know it, it'll be just like Bitcoin, where maybe 4 years from now you start hearing about it on CNBC. And before you know it, it's everywhere. See, I think that's a process that's continually going on. And the SEC and the CFTC and the FDIC and the IRS and all these organizations, they're trying to get ahead of it, and they can't. They can't because they're competing with 7 billion or so fucking people on planet Earth that are involving themselves in these things in real time. And they're going back and looking at the mistakes of previous coins and said, oh, this is the point where they got regulated. Oh, this is the point where they made themselves monitorable. And they're correcting that shit. So again, if you think you're going to put some reins on that, good luck. Good fucking luck. I don't give a fuck if you seize the entire internet tomorrow. Somebody will start working on a fucking line of sight network with their fucking their neighbors and whatnot, and before you know it, they will have resurrected a network between them and thousands, if not millions, of other people, and just created their own cryptocurrency that transacts on it, if they haven't already, because the capability is out there, and just told you to fuck off entirely. It's possible, and like I said, it's probably already happening. It's probably happening while we're talking about it right this very moment. And it's with that, I want to go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I hardly ever play these guys, and I feel ashamed for that fact because they've been at it so very, very long. So we're going to have to resolve that right here. A little bit of overkill for you. Goddamn trouble. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Machine by Static X. And so, got a couple things lined up to cover here on this show. And the first one I'm going to cover here is on ccn.com. And this one is kind of funny given these guys' history with cryptocurrencies, spanning from their involvement in I think it was a trading. No, I'm sorry, that was Goldman Sachs. They have been involved in cryptocurrencies since, I want to say, 2014 in earnest, and that's J.P. Morgan. But the most recent thing that most people remember them for anyway was Jamie Dimon coming out and saying that Bitcoin was a scam and so on and so forth. And here we are almost a year later. Anyway, continuing on. I got this article here. And if I can get it up in front of me here. JP Morgan. Cryptocurrency is unlikely to disappear. Yes, really. And this was authored... Let's see, who wrote this fucking thing? Where the... God damn you. They didn't bother to tell us who... Oh, here we go. It was by Geraldine Turzo. Geraldine blah blah blah. Her. Okay, so no penis. There we go. That's what we were looking for. Thank you, Geraldine. You should have put it at the top. Continuing on. JP Morgan's mixed signals on Bitcoin persist. The top U.S. bank, based on assets, has released what's been dubbed a Bitcoin Bible for investors, conceding that cryptocurrencies aren't going away, while simultaneously warning investors about a looming 50% or so drop in the Bitcoin price. Meanwhile, JP Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon, whose distaste turned disinterest in Bitcoin made headlines for months, hopefully okayed the resources to create the Bitcoin manual. Otherwise, someone's job could be on the line. The Bitcoin Bible, which is comprised of 71 pages of crypto, covers topics ranging from the technology of Bitcoin to its use cases, not to mention the hurdles that it faces. Meanwhile, JP Morgan analysts have issued their own report saying conditions are ripe for the Bitcoin price to fall to 4605, which would reflect nearly a 50% drop from its current level of 87.27, and actually it's up $300 from that now. Bitcoin Bible. Perhaps the most revolutionary finding in the Bitcoin Bible is the bank's realization that cryptocurrencies aren't going anywhere. They write, quote, CCs are unlikely to disappear completely and could easily survive in varying forms and shapes among players who desire greater decentralization, peer-to-peer networks, and anonymity, even as the latter is under threat. The Bitcoin Bible is also printed to cryptocurrencies as a point of diversification for investment portfolios, providing a non-correlated asset to stocks and bonds. For instance, this point of view could bolster cryptocurrencies into the retirement market, such as 401k plans in the United States, or at least further the conversation. Now, let's see here. The hurdles, they say, surround Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies competing with fiat-based currencies, pointing to the euro and the yuan as some of its stiffest competition. And if you argue Bitcoin more as a store of value than as a currency by which to spend, the argument loses some of its luster. Less surprisingly is their acceptance of the, quote, blockchain, which Dimon himself has touted as real, and whose technology is increasingly permeating the bank's internal divisions. JP Morgan in the Bitcoin Bible points to the merits of the distributed ledger technology for accelerating cross-border payments, pointing to, quote, reward tokens or funding systems for other blockchain innovations and the Internet of Things. You know what? I'd really like to find whoever it is that's bandying this shit about and just slap them like really, really, really hard. Because what they're talking about are systems that you don't necessarily have choice in. Like, you know, the Doja project that we talked about the other day, it sounds really great. Unless, without your knowledge, they start mining Monero instead of the tokens that they're supposedly going to be mining or having in circulation. I don't know how that whole thing works yet. Hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk to somebody about that and resolve that matter. However, the point being that once you take the choice out of it, you know, it's like your IoT, your Internet of Things, is supposedly mining some currency, you know, and according to the descriptions of what we were talking about with the Doja, that you'd have computers in all of your devices, like everything, you know, your light switches, all this other shit. That's the Internet of Things. And they want to turn those things into miners and mine with them. But again, once you start into that, okay, and you're not sitting there directing every little fucking hash of data that's going through your miner, as soon as you start divorcing yourself from that's where things get sketchy. That's where we're starting to fall back into trust again. And that's kind of one of those things that we're trying to avoid with this whole cryptocurrency business, isn't it? Anyway, like I said, hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk to other people about that. But anyway, continuing on with this. Analysts warning Meanwhile, despite the rosy report on Bitcoin, JP Morgan analysts also issue a wake-up call in the form of technical analysis, warning investors that the Bitcoin price is headed for a drop of enormous proportions to the 4605 level from its current price of more than 8,700, reflecting a drop as much of almost 50%. Quote, "The question is whether we go there straight away," indicated on a failure to clear 10.128 and 10.776, or a later stage after a stronger counter-trend rally, according to the analyst report cited in the Business Insider. But JP Morgan analysts, which remain impressed by the Bitcoin price's recovery from its recent doldrums, suggests that Bitcoin's fate is only sealed if it doesn't break through its current resistance noted in the above range. If it can do that, the price could recover back to the range of 14,334 to 16,304. Mixed signals. It's not the first time that JP Morgan has sent mixed signals both to Wall Street and the crypto community on Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, JP Morgan chief executive, famously called Bitcoin a fraud back in September before having a change of heart. He later expressed remorse, with his feelings on the topic advancing from intolerance to no interest. JP Morgan also addressed institutional capital, most of which remains sidelined from cryptocurrencies, as a signal to watch for cryptocurrencies making their way into the mainstream. Hedge funds comprise the lion's share of the 175 cryptocurrency funds in the market, but assets under management have yet to surpass the low billion-dollar threshold. And so there you have it. I think one of the causes for this, and it's one of these points that's not really enunciated all that much. You don't need these fucking monkeys to access these markets. If you don't need them, why are you going to rely on a fucking account manager? I mean, half of them don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. A significant portion of the rest don't want to talk to you about it because they do know what you're talking about. And there's probably some finite portion of those people out there that actually want to talk to you about it, but only because they want your money and aren't necessarily going to invest it in your best interest. But more to the point, the reason why these markets are as accessible as they are is because we want you to directly participate with us. We don't want you to need Jamie Dimon or JP Morgan Chase to do business with us. We want you to be able to do it with your fucking cell phone. That's the kind of market that we're operating in here. This is the 21st century, kids. And I mean, I hate enunciating that kids point, but you know what? I see a lot of you out here, you're just dying to defer to some other authority. And it really is, it saddens me, considering that we don't have to ask for permission here. We just do the shit. If enough fucking people like what you're doing, they will do it too. It's like the people that rely on Core for everything. Fuck Core. Satoshi Nakamoto didn't give Bitcoin to Core. That was done by accident, and the only aspect that was actually quote unquote given to anybody was access to the GitHub repository. And that only matters if we bother to just adhere to their BIPs. If at some point in the future we decide to make up a different GitHub and start putting our own BIPs in that repository and maybe electing a different group of developers to be working on things, we are just as capable of doing that as we have ever been. I think that's one of the big things, one of the big aspects of this quote-unquote game we call Bitcoin, is that it's not a matter of where we choose to defer trust to somebody else. It's where we choose to assume trust onto ourselves. We, as a community, as cryptocurrency industry, have been deferring to other people too much. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're experiencing the issues that we are, because I would go so far to suggest that if there were such an alternative repository and people were made aware of it via Twitter and other social media campaigns, that Blockstream would lose their position very, very quickly. And the reason I suggest that is because the vast majority of the transactions that are happening on the Bitcoin network are not SegWit transactions. This tells me that a finite number of people are using segregated witness. And as a matter of fact, I would argue it's probably a lot lower than most people actually think. It's just that there's a whole bunch of bullshit transactions that are going through just to get SegWit transactions in the blocks. And there's the SegWit capable or SegWit repeating or whatever nodes, the non-mining nodes out there, they outnumber regular Bitcoin nodes 5-1. Which almost guarantees that some SegWit transactions will get included, because these same nodes, they don't propagate normal Bitcoin transactions. So despite the fact that 85% of the transactions that are actually making it into the block are normal Bitcoin transactions, that's after they've gone across the entire network without the help of over 2/3 of the nodes out there. So what's the likelihood that a significant number of standard Bitcoin transactions are actually being inhibited from entering it into the block at a decent price due to the fact that they aren't getting across the network fast enough to beat these other SegWit transactions? What's the likelihood? I would go so far as to say it's pretty fucking high. I bet if that network issue were straightened out, if the number of people that actually use Bitcoin were participating more, and we had that number of nodes inverted to where it was 5 normal Bitcoin nodes versus 1 SegWit node, that there wouldn't be any SegWit transactions included in the blocks. They wouldn't get across the network fast enough. They wouldn't get included. I'd be willing to bet that. Otherwise, why would they be running so many fucking SegWit nodes? Because honestly, I don't see that there's enough actual demand for using it. But, you know, I started thinking about this the other day, and one of the funny things about having limited block space is that it doesn't just limit the number of regular Bitcoin transactions, it also limits the number of SegWit transactions. So despite the fact that they take up less space, there is still a relative hard cap to the number of SegWit transactions that are going to fit in a block, which means invariably, at one point or another, that price for a SegWit transaction, despite the fact it's much cheaper than a standard Bitcoin transaction, will still be far more expensive than using a Lightning Network node or Lightning Network payment channel. Somebody else's Lightning Network payment channel, which will mean you giving them your Bitcoin. I mean, think about that. Because you're not going to be able to open one up. You're not going to be able to afford the mining fees for it. I mean, shit, just look back at December's prices per kilobyte for the mining fees for standard Bitcoin transactions just back in December. Take a look at that. That's what you had to look forward to, even with all of the transactions being SegWit transactions. Is that at one point or another you're going to be paying $100 for a SegWit transaction, and you're going to be saying, hey, what the fuck? This is supposed to make my transactions cheaper. And you're going to be right in the same place we are. And then they're going to come along and say, well, it'd be way cheaper if you would just use one of our Lightning Network payment channels. Why don't you go ahead and use Goldman Sachs' payment channel or Visa's payment channel? It's not going to be your payment channel because you're going to be competing with Visa and Goldman Sachs and all these other fuckers for block space because they're wanting to include their transactions, their fucking payment channel transactions. And those payment channels are going to be for millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. They're not going to open it up just for a fucking coffee transaction. Because somebody has to pay the fucking miner fees. And like I said, even with them being SegWit transactions, eventually, with only 1 megabyte of space to occupy, they're going to get fucking expensive too. And that's a reality that you're going to have to fucking come to terms with. The SegWit is not a quote-unquote scaling solution. Off-chain is where that ends up. And you'll be under somebody else's discretion at that point. Because like I said, you're not going to be able to afford to be dealing with it. And that's one of the reasons why JP Morgan has never fully closed the door on cryptocurrencies. Because they can see being a participant in this like monopoly or duopoly or highly constrained Bitcoin market. Because I'm telling you, if it goes down to Lightning Network, that's going to be the most expensive real estate on planet Earth. Millions of dollars per fucking kilobyte. And you can quote me on that. Continuing on, I got this article here, and this is kind of an addendum to our JP Morgan folly here. And this is on financemagnates.com. Never even heard of this website before, but we right-clicked on something, and so we ended up here. Is JP Morgan finally warming up to Bitcoin? A recent report by the bank portrays a completely opposite stance on Bitcoin relative to its CEO, Jamie Dimon. And motherfucking pop-up shit. Wall Street banks have never accepted Bitcoin. Jamie Dimon, CEO of JP Morgan, has always been very vocal with his skeptic statements about crypto. However, despite the head of the institution having such views, JP Morgan has released a 71-page long detailed document about Bitcoin titled, quote, Decrypting Cryptocurrencies, Technology, Application, and Challenges. Surprisingly, in the report, JP Morgan acknowledged the benefits of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. An excerpt from the report reads, CCs are unlikely to disappear completely and could easily survive in varying forms and shapes among players who desire greater decentralization, peer-to-peer networks, and anonymity, even as the latter is under threat. The bank praised blockchain technology as the report mentioned. Quote, the underlying technology for CCs could have the greatest application in areas where current payment systems are slow, such as across borders, as a payment, reward tokens, or funding systems for other blockchain innovations and the Internet of Things, as well as parts of the underground economy. Yeah, whatever. The underground economy. Whatever. These fucking people are continuing on. JP Morgan published their so-called Bitcoin Bible the same day the New York Fed admitted that, quote, in a dystopian world, Bitcoin would dominate payment methods. No, it wouldn't. The report further admits the acceptance of cryptocurrencies in the mainstream market, as it noted, quote, hedge funds have been moving into this market, making up most of the 175 cryptocurrency funds, but AUM remains only a few $billion. Asset managers are experiencing limited success in bringing products to market and have not been able to launch cryptocurrency funds or ETFs without support from the SEC or major distributors, it added. That's only because they're asking for permission still. Assessing the cryptocurrency penetration in global markets, JP Morgan team wrote that cryptocurrencies, quote, could potentially have a role in diversifying one's global bond and equity portfolio. JP Morgan's CEO, Jamie Dimon, is still very critical about Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies. Although his firm has acknowledged the potential of cryptocurrencies, he personally never complimented the emerging digital economy. Last year, he trashed Bitcoin, calling it a fraud, and compared its craze with the infamous bubble of tulip bulbs. Dimon publicly announced that, quote, "If you're stupid enough to buy Bitcoin, you'll pay the price for it one day." Earlier this month, JP Morgan, along with Bank of America and Citigroup, has banned all cryptocurrency-related transactions on their credit cards. Citigroup, however, confirmed that it will review its policy in this regard. Wall Street's stance about the cryptocurrencies has always been critical. However, as more and more money is flowing into the cryptocurrency economy, they cannot ignore the market for long. Yeah, they want to make money. What's new about that? Anyway, yeah, more on this blockchain bullshit. I think I've stated this enough on this show, but just in case you've never heard it before, the way it works is like this, folks. First, you have to have miners. And in order to have miners, you have to have hardware, electricity, and bandwidth, and interested parties. Then, through the work of the miners, you get the blockchain. But they're doing it for a cryptocurrency. Without the actual motivation of making money on that cryptocurrency, there really isn't any motivation to participate in the process of mining. It's expensive, and it's hot. It can be very, very hot. But the point being that you have to have these things in order to have a quote-unquote cryptocurrency. Otherwise, you just have a distributed ledger. And a distributed ledger is no better than a fucking database. Because you have to, again, have private miners willingly participating in the process of mining in order to even be able to regard the product, i.e. the blockchain, with any kind of trust. Because otherwise it could be manipulated at the hardware level, at the driver level, at the miner level. It can be manipulated all over the fucking place, and you won't have any clue about it. I mean, you might be able to verify that your transactions happened on it, but you won't necessarily be able to verify how much of it you received. I mean, you would, but only by the blockchain. But again, that's only if the blockchain is public. You know, if all the shit's that's happening on it is being distributed publicly. And a lot of these things, they're not talking about including you as a miner. You know, which implies to me that they intend to just have their own quote-unquote miners and be able to manipulate shit in the background. You would never even know. They could have a different version of the blockchain just for you, or a quote-unquote side chain just for you, and all your transactive activity is happening within it. It's all happening on credit, and they can tweak the interest rate for it whenever they want and however they want. They can reorder the transactions however they want because it's happening on their network. You've trusted them with it. And that's why we mine, folks. It's not just to avoid regulatory bullshit. It's so that we can trust the work because we're doing the work. But, you know, not enough of you are actually doing the work out there. And so the question of who to trust is starting to come back up. Because you've not taken the trust upon yourself, which is what you need to do. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And we played a little bit of Slipknot. Did we play any Slayer last time? You know, I think we avoided playing Slayer. You can't do that. So here it is. God Send Death by Slayer. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Anthrax. A little bit of old school Anthrax there with Gridlock. Sorry, got a little intimate there, but 12-Foot Ninja, point of view. One of the things about this band is they've got this kind of a jazzy side to them. And I'll tell you what, man, it's like if that were like a selection on a dial, they just like flip back and forth between that and metal every song, or every other song, it seems. You know, it makes me think that at least part of the band played nightclubs, jazz clubs, for a little while, you know, before they came to 12-Foot Ninja. I don't care. Honestly, it's really fucking good music. And to me, that's the clincher. You know, it's if you went through the trouble to produce some really quality music, I really don't give a fuck if it's got some nice little flavor in it from, you know, some flamenco or some jazz club or some shit like that. I don't care. And it's one of the things that I kind of got endeared to Meshuggah with. They were far more jazzy a while back. You know, if you look at Destroy, Erase, Improve, that was dubbed as having a lot of jazz fusion influence, and it's where this polyrhythm thing came in. You know, where they were doing time signatures that were really unusual for metal, and it really threw people for a loop, as I kind of estimated it would, and it still does. I mean, there's people today when they discover Meshuggah, they're just tripped out by the drum and the rhythm patterns. They're very, very confusing for the first pass, at least. And so anyway, I think it's kind of appropriate that Gridlock, with those with the words in their what was it? I'm trying to think of the lyric now that initiated this segue. And of course, my stuff is so good that I've gone blotto and forgotten it. Anyway, I've got this article here, and this was kind of what I was segueing into. And if you reflect on the words of the song Gridlock, you'll probably understand where I was going with it here. Account expertly trolling Tether is back on Twitter. This is authored on February 13th. Apparently we've jumped into the future and rendered this article from there. February 13th, 2018. Here we go. Oh, wait a minute. We're going to open the source. Yeah, this is on modernconsensus.com. And this is originally authored by, and that's why I actually followed this, is they bothered to, on the Bitcoin news, actually put that it was a reference to a different article in the, or at least a different site. And so yeah, this is on modernconsensus.com. Account expertly trolling Tether is back on Twitter. Tether printer is once again printing, albeit under a slightly new name. And this is by Lawrence Lewitton, authored February 13th, 2018. So apparently Lawrence is a time traveler. In any case, continuing on. It's not the most significant bits of news. A Twitter account is now back online after being temporarily suspended. Then again, Tether Printer, or as it's currently called, not Tether Printer, isn't a simple account. It was down for a couple of days, but it was back in operation on Monday night. Tether, of course, is the allegedly US dollar-backed cryptocurrency, which happens to have been started by the same folks who run Bitfinex, the world's largest Bitcoin marketplace. It's alleged that large chunks of Tether are being issued out of thin air and being used by the company's owners to prop up the prices of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies on Bitfinex and other exchanges. the Commodity Futures Trading Commission paid a visit to their offices to hand over a subpoena or two. That goes against the premise of Tether, which is that each coin is worth $1 because it's backed by dollars somewhere in a bank. In a way, Tether owners should be able to move dollars around the cryptocurrency universe without regulations or prying eyes of, say, Uncle Sam. Except there's a question of just how many dollars are really backing Tether. They publish a lovely looking balance sheet, but they no longer have a relationship with their auditors. For almost a year now, one can't buy Tether directly on the company's website because they no longer have the kind of proper banking relationship that would allow for it. Instead, it's traded for US dollars on the Kraken exchange, where it can then be transferred to, say, Bitfinex and sold for Bitcoin. Yet, there are all these new Tether being issued. The trend started, surprise, just when Tether lost its banking relationships in April of 2017. Since then, the amount of Tether outstanding has gone from 50 million to its current $2.2 billion size. Thus a clever person or persons decided to come up with a fun way to keep track of the breathtaking amount of Tether being issued every time it happens, by publishing a tweet with the amount under the name Tether Printer. Here's a recent example where 100 million in Tether dropped into the world 3 times in 5 days. Not Tether Printer. Just printed 100 million USDT, and then it gives us a reference. Oh fuck! Here it is. Oh wow! It shows you the transaction where it was issued, I guess. Let's see, it was on January 23rd, 2018 at 12:07:55 p.m. Block 500,05704. Bitcoin fees 0.00025. Omni fees 0. Payload 16 bytes. Size not applicable. Class C, null data. Version type 55, version 0. Yeah, so there we go. Printing. Anyway, continuing on. According to the brains behind Tether Printer, they were temporarily blocked from Twitter for not specifying that they were a parody account. Then again, when one is covering a coin that acts like a joke, isn't that obvious? Oh yeah, definitely. So there you have it, a little bit of further coverage with regard to Tether. Apparently the Tether Printer is back up. Let's check this subpoena business, though. That's kind of interesting. Let's see when it was actually... Yeah, we already covered this. Yeah, we already covered this business a while ago. As a matter of fact, I've been covering Tether pretty much from their beginning, their inception, because my claim has always been that you cannot combine a cryptocurrency with a fiat currency. You can't do it. You can't. Invariably, you're going to experience the kind of trust relationship that we have here with Tether printing up the billions of dollars worth of coins and supposedly having a one-to-one relationship with dollars that they own in a bank account that they administrate, or at least have direct administrative power over. But we haven't seen any evidence of that. And all of the hallmarks that they came in with have slowly gone away. Like, they had an auditor. Well, they don't have a fucking auditor anymore. And it's never been 100% clear whether or not they actually have ownership or ownership control rather of the bank accounts that are holding their backing funds. You know, they showed some sort of prospectus that had the accounts on it, or a account on it, with $50 million in it. But it's never been 100% verified that they had ownership of those funds at any time. So, you know, again, it's one of those things where we've been placed in a trust relationship. We already have a trust relationship with our exchanges, the ones that we actually trust enough to leave the coins on. But beyond that, we have this trust relationship with Tether that supposedly has a one-to-one backing for every single coin with a volume of US dollars at a ratio of 1-to-1. And again, this has never been verified. This has never been confirmed. And so we're trusting them. And I don't trust them. I didn't get into crypto so I can trust people. I got into crypto so that I didn't need to trust people anymore. And, you know, again, so we were kind of forced to this with banks pretty much closing all of the accounts that we make that to back any kind of project that's in crypto. And I find that really sad. And that's, you know, if the CFTC and the SEC and the FDIC, if they want to do something, that will help us, start prosecuting these fuckers like Wells Fargo and other, well, not well, they've changed their stance with regard to cryptocurrencies. I got to say, when I connected a Wells Fargo account to a Coinbase account, it was so fucking quick and so easy that I can't say enough good things. It was actually good. But before, not so long ago, Wells Fargo didn't have that kind of relationship with crypto. And there are other banks out there that still have a negative relationship with regard to crypto. So, you know, with that in mind, it's like, where else do we have to go but tools like Tether with which to interface our US dollars or euros or whatever with cryptocurrencies, fiat currencies with cryptocurrencies? How else are we supposed to do that if the trust mongers that we put in charge of our US dollars, or Federal Reserve notes as I call them, we put those people in charge, and they're doing their due diligence, but they're overstepping their bound and controlling what we can actually invest in. You know, I mean, would they do the same thing to you if it was made clear that you were buying, say, cases of, you know, 1850 scotch? Would they close your account for doing something like that? Probably not. What if you were buying vintage automobiles? Do you think they would close your account for buying vintage automobiles? What about art? You know, rare art, statues and shit. Do you think they'd close your account at your local credit union for doing something like that? No. But they have the audacity to close your account if you try to interface with a cryptocurrency exchange. I mean, there's got to be something wrong with that. I mean, there is something wrong with that, but I'm saying there's, you know, if all of these federal organizations wanted to do something to help us, do something on the fiat side. Because if you don't, we're going to end up having to use things like Tether and potentially get fucked out of a lot of money. You know, it introduces so much possibility for market abuse. I mean, because then you've got somebody just like the Federal Reserve, except they literally just put a couple of fucking zeros on the left side of the decimal point, and all is golden, man. They've got enough fucking funds to cover shit. and they're completely unaccountable. Because they are kind of in a legal gray area. They've set up in jurisdictions that they don't necessarily have to comply with U.S. laws in. And so, they've got banks in jurisdictions that the SEC can't just fucking pry into and verify. So again, we're putting a lot of trust in them to actually make good. Now, this is no claim that they are quote-unquote fraudulent at this point. However, I find it really hard to believe that they'd received so many U.S. dollars that they can actually guarantee their funds 1-to-1 for U.S. dollars. I have zero faith in that. I mean, I don't trust the Federal Reserve because they won't tell us their books. I mean, they won't give Congress their books. We have no idea how many U.S. dollars are created. We have estimates. But that's derived from known data. Not actual data from the Federal Reserve. Not actual books from the Federal Reserve. So we don't quote-unquote know these things. That's why, you cannot combine fiat with cryptocurrency. You just can't do it. You're talking about two different vehicles. One of them is wholly accountable. The other is not. And you're trying to interface the two, and invariably the lack of accountability on the side that's not accountable is going to fuck things up. Invariably. Period. So there we go. Tether, big question marks, no guarantees. Personally, I'm looking to kind of stay off of exchanges that have only USDT pairings with cryptocurrencies. I mean, if they have other pairings, like Bitcoin base or Ethereum base or something like that, then I'm more comfortable with it, because they do have guaranteed reserves of one of those fucking coins. Probably Bitcoin, maybe others too. I mean, some of them I'm sure are running on some sort of fractional reserve, but I doubt it's anything like Tether probably is, and the Federal Reserve. Anyway, shifting down into it, this is kind of where I was migrating to. I don't know how. Oh, this is a very, very small article. Where the fuck is the real article? Okay, here we go. Here we go. I hate it when they do that. They put it's a teaser, you click on a link and they put one paragraph and you scroll down just a little bit and you find out the rest of the article somewhere else. Anyway, this one's on ccn.com, and let's see, Bitcoin regulation. Does it tell us who authored this thing? Oh, shit. No. Let's try and follow. Yeah, here we go. Now we followed it down to the source. Okay, we've gone 2 websites deep to get to this shit, but it was originally published on CNN.com, in moneycnn.com or money.cnn.com. I don't know. Money CNN. IMF chief. Cryptocurrency regulation is, quote, inevitable. This is by Zahra Al-Khalisi. No indication of penis. This is authored on February 11th, 2018 at 2:43 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, let's right-click on this really quick and see if we get any indication. No. Nope. No indication of penis. We're just going to stick with it. Continuing on. It's inevitable, she told CNN Money emerging markets editor John Defterios. It's clearly a domain where we need international regulation and proper supervision, quote, unquote. Quote, there is a probability, quite a bit of dark activity in cryptocurrencies, she added at the World Government Summit in Dubai on Sunday. Lagarde said the IMF is actively trying to prevent digital currencies from being used to launder money or finance terrorism. But she argued that regulators needed to focus less on entities and more on activities. Who is doing what, and whether they're properly licensed and supervised. Pfft, like you're qualified to supervise anybody on anything. Digital currencies have largely operated in a regulatory vacuum since Bitcoin's debut in 2009, but governments and central banks are starting to pay closer attention, warning investors about potential scams. In December, the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission and the Federal Bureau of Investigation started to crack down on alleged fraud in fundraising by some cryptocurrency companies and traders. In Asia, where cryptocurrency is particularly popular, China and South Korea have both cracked down on cryptocurrency trading. Yeah, whatever. Concerns about new restrictions and rumors over a potential ban in India have fueled volatility in digital currency prices. Actually, that probably didn't have anything to do with it. You want to know what I think had more to do with it, and just as a segue here, is the fact that the Federal Reserve just got a new chair. There was talk of an interest rate hike, and there has since been talk of capitulation with regard to the Federal Reserve and the possibility of new QE in the future. Anyway, continuing on. Top government officials at the World Economic Forum in Davos have signaled that more regulation could be on its way. Quote, "We encourage fintech, we encourage innovation, but we want to make sure that all of our financial markets are safe and aren't being used for illicit activities," U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin said last month at the conference. British Prime Minister Theresa May echoed that sentiment, saying that her government would look very seriously at cryptocurrencies because of the way they are used, particularly by criminals. Bitcoin, they mark it under XBT, has crashed along with global stocks, plunging 40% from a month ago to trade nearly $83.50. It peaked at 19,343 on December 16th. Maybe XBT did, but Bitcoin broke 20,000. Sorry. Anyway, yeah, Christine Lagarde, or Miss Lagarde, or Ms. Lagarde, or whatever Lagarde, I'm sorry, ma'am, you are completely incorrect. You may want to put ink to paper, you may want to make some digital version of some sort of, I don't know, global referendum on regulations, and maybe even regulations themselves. However, what you are going to find, what we've already found, is that the vast majority of all cryptocurrency transactions have absolutely nothing to do with money laundering, drugs, prostitution, human slavery, wars, terrorism, any of that bullshit. If you want to find out what is really funding that shit, you have no further to look than your central bank's books, because they are funding that shit. Fucking all this talk about terrorism and cryptocurrencies. We've never had more accountable currencies ever. But these fucking people are doing everything they possibly can to avoid that accountability. What does that really tell you? It doesn't. You know what it tells me? It tells me that you're more trustworthy than they are. That you, the potential criminal, black marketeer, are more trustworthy than them. That's what it tells me. Because you're not trying to hide behind laws. You're doing your transactions on public fucking blockchains. And these people, they don't want anything to do with it. Why? Because they'd be accountable too. They don't want accountability. And the reason they don't want accountability is because they intend to violate your trust. They can't meet the same threshold of trust that you can. They do everything they can to avoid the level of accountability that you're submitting your transactions to. You're saying, hey, take a look, here it is. Here's the fucking transaction ID. I moved X amount of fucking Bitcoin, X amount of Verge, X amount of Litecoin. That is if it is on the open blockchain with Verge. But even then, they can't tell it was you. The point being that you're willing to use these public transaction networks that are mined by people just like you. And you're willing to do that rather than put that monetary value in a bank account or in a 401k plan that's managed by a legacy broker. What is that really saying? I'll tell you what, it tells me that there's a lack of confidence on that side. And you know what? It's well earned. Bitcoin wouldn't even exist if it weren't. You got to keep that in mind. And it is with that, I'd like to close out this episode. We will be back again on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Because it is kind of funky out there, but there is some money to be made. I want you to do your homework. Because by golly, how are you going to tell the trash from the good stuff? And I want you to watch out for your own bunghole, because the IMF cannot fucking do it for you. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly appreciate the support. You can find me on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. I have finished the part of last episode that we actually recorded, and I will be posting that on my YouTube channel shortly, in case you did miss that on Friday. But yeah, we'll be back again, and thank you very much for listening, and you'll be able to also find me on Telegram and in the IRC chat room for Verge Currency. And so it is with that I want to go ahead and close out this episode with a little bit of Cold Chamber, because we have not played any today. And here it is, Big Truck. Thank you again, and have an excellent evening.